and that declared their intent to be free from British rule. Now, are you free because you signed a piece of paper? No. What did it require that they do to gain their freedom? What did they have to do? They had to fight something. What did they have to fight? Had to fight the British in a war. A really big war. And who do you think the Americans asked to lead the American Continental Army? They did. George Washington himself was asked to lead the American Continental Army. George Washington had a couple of problems. That's cool. So let me tell you something. George Washington was in charge of the troops, but he had a problem with those troops. Do you know what the problem was? They were not trained. His troops were kind of a ragtag bunch. Some of them were farmers. Some of them were merchants that sold things. Some of them were tradesmen, like maybe a blacksmith or someone who makes chairs. But they weren't trained soldiers. Did you know that some of those men didn't even have shoes to wear? No shoes. Can you imagine walking around with no shoes? They didn't get to walk on cement or pavement. Many of them did not have uniforms. What's the problem with that? Why do you need a uniform to fight a war?
So then you know what side you're on.
Exactly. If you don't know who you're fighting, you might kill the wrong guy, right?
But it could be kind of useful because then you could go on the other side and you could be like, oh, I lost my uniform.
That sounds good, but the British all had uniforms. They knew who they were. We just didn't know who we were. So what the Americans did is they decided that they would get a green sprig, like a plant, and they would stick it in their hat. That was the uniform for people who didn't have a uniform. You know something else that they were missing? They didn't have guns. How are you going to fight a war without guns? When the other side has plenty. Okay, that was a problem, right? George Washington had a big job ahead of him. And most of the people in the world, who do you think they thought was going to win? The Americans?
But the farmers could use pigs for it.
Okay, that's true, but the British had the most advanced navy and army in the world at that time. They were amazing, and nobody thought the Americans were going to win. But guess what? At the Battle for Boston, George Washington and his men were able to push back the British and save that city. Unfortunately, the British weren't done. They weren't finished with the war. They were going to keep on fighting. And George Washington guessed where they were going to go next. Where do you think the British were going to go next? What city? What do you think?
Utah.
Not Utah.
New York.
Very good. They were headed to New York City. This is what New York looked like at the time. Now guys, this is New York City on Manhattan Island. This is Long Island. Here's New Jersey, you've heard of that, and this is Staten Island. George Washington guessed that they were going to attack New York. Now this island is actually attached to a whole lot of land on it. And George Washington didn't want them to attack it because he knew if the British took their ships and sailed up here, the Hudson Bay and the Hudson River Valley, that they would cut off effectively one half of the continental United States from the other, because they would control the waterways. And in those days, they used the waterways to ferry people and supplies. They didn't have cars, they didn't have trains, they didn't have planes. So if they were going to move their troops, they were going to feed their troops, they had to do it either with wagons and horses or rivers. And rivers were the fastest way. So George Washington knew he had to protect these waterways so that they could keep the war going and they could hopefully win it, right? Okay. But George Washington did not know where they were going to attack. He thought for sure it was going to be New York somewhere, but he didn't know where. So he first took his troops over here to Manhattan, where they landed or stopped, and they began building battlements and forts on this side of the river. This is the over here, right over here in Long Island. Look, right? And they built a fort. It's called Fort Stern. And they were protecting Long Island. And they still didn't know for sure where the British were going to go. Then all of a sudden, in July of that summer, the British showed up. And they showed up in a lot. How many ships do you think they brought? A ton? Like specific, 25 ships? Anybody else want to guess? 35? One more guess? 210? 427 ships. What that looks like? That's amazing. Look at this. How would you like to see this sailing into your city? Would you be nervous?
Scared.
Oh, that would be scary. But guess what? They didn't float all the way up here. They didn't sail all the way up to New York City. They didn't sail over here to Long Island. What they did do was bring their troops here to Staten Island. And they brought 32,000. You know that is more men than in any city in the continental U.S. 32,000 men came on. And they all waited on Staten Island for General Howe, who was commanding the British forces, to tell them. Now George Washington got nervous. He knew they were here. So he sent some more troops over here on Long Island to protect them. But he left most of his troops over here in New York City. And then on August 22nd, the British landed. Where do you think they landed? Raise your hand if you think they landed over here in New York City, over Manhattan Island. Okay? Raise your hand if you think they landed here in Long Island. On August 22nd, the British sailed their ships right over here. If you said Long Island, you were absolutely right. Now, the British had lots of spies among the Americans. They weren't dressed up like British people. They were secret spies. And the spies told them that the Americans were not guarding the Jamaican pass. And that if they could sneak up the Jamaican pass, they could sneak up and surround the Americans on 3 sides. And it would be easy to defeat them. Well, George Washington was nervous. He sent some more troops over here. And he came himself over here to Long Island because he wanted to make sure he could command the troops there while they fought. He got in his boat. He sailed over here to Long Island. Now, imagine this. This is what you see, right? You saw ships coming out. The ships are heading up here. They're heading up New York Harbor. They're going to try to cut off the Americans here. The troops are coming this direction, and they're going to try to cut off the Americans there. This is what it would have looked like to see the troops coming out. Look at that. What do they have in their hands? Guns. And what's on the end of the guns? Bayonets. And it's like a spear. It's like a knife. Goes on the end of your gun. Because in this day and age, you've got hand-to-hand combat. That means you're close to the person who's fighting. Would you be nervous? I'm sure George Washington's troops were scared. But the British advanced and they got ready. George Washington sent out generals out here to protect them. Okay. And the British snuck out. On August the 26th, the British were close enough that by morning they were able to engage in battle with the American troops. Who do you think won the battle? Raise your hand if it was the Americans. Raise your hand. The Americans were getting killed on the battlefield. It was terrible. They weren't prepared at all for how well trained the British Army was. By mid-morning, on the first day of their fighting, already 300 men had been killed and 1,000 had been captured, including 2 generals had been captured by the British. And the Americans fought for 2 days. That's right. They were called the American Continental Army, and they fought bravely for 2 whole days against the British. This is what it would have looked like. Can you imagine watching people die? The Americans were sick. They'd spent an entire summer building forts and battlements on each side of this river to prepare for the British invasion. They'd gotten sick because of lots of germs like smallpox, and the heat was getting them. And they were really tired from all of the fighting. So what do you think George Washington had? Surrender. He could have done that. What would have been another?
Try to get more men to fight more.
Okay. Bring over more men. Anything else he could do? That's what George Washington decided to do. They were getting killed over here, and he needed to save as many men as possible so they could fight another day, right? And he wants to retreat. But there's a problem. They don't have a lot of boats, number one, and they have to sail across this river. It's about a mile long. What's going to happen when they try to sail across the river? British ships are going to fire on them, right? They're out in the open. They can see them. What's going to happen with the troops here?
Stay there.
They're going to overwhelm them and fire them from that side. They're going to kill them all. He has one chance to sneak his soldiers over here to New York City. What do you think is the best way to sneak them?
Take the boat and lift it into.
That's an idea. That's an idea. They didn't have time for that. Now, if it's daytime, you're going to easily see all the troops. But if it's nighttime, it's going to be a lot harder. Why?
Because then you can see them.
And back then, they didn't have a lot of lights. Mostly candles, right? So there wasn't a lot of it. It was super dark at night. That's what George Washington decided he was going to do. But he had to keep it a secret. Because remember I told you, there are spies everywhere. So he sent a message over here to Manhattan and said, get every boat you can and come down to the beach. I'm going to bring troops over here to protect Long Island. Was he bringing troops over to protect Long Island? No. He told them that so they wouldn't know what was happening. They got down here, and as soon as they got down here to the Bay Area, they said, we're going over empty. That was the first time that any of the people who had boats knew they were going over here to evacuate soldiers. Well, there's a problem. They're coming over here, right? But it's been raining and storming all day. And there's a wind coming from the northeast, and it's blowing really hard. What happens when a wind blows really hard this way? It's going to do what?
It will turn the ships around.
It's going to push the ships back, right? But what about these guys that are trying to go up here? What's it going to do to them? It's going to push them here too, isn't it? Okay. But George Washington knew it was his only choice. So they set out. And just as they set out with the first of his troops, let me tell you something. His troops didn't even know they were evacuated. He just called them all down to the beach and said, quit fighting and come down to the beach. And put them on boats. It was the first time they knew they were evacuated. And he had to do that because he didn't want any of the spies to go tell the British they were sneaking out. So he put them on boats, and as soon as they got on the boats, the wind that was coming from this direction stopped. It became calm. And the ships were able to sail peacefully across the water with men and supplies and ammunition and tanks, all sorts of things that they needed to keep fighting the war. And they went back and forth all night long. What happened? 5:30 in the morning, though. What comes up at 5:30 in the morning? What comes up? Night, and now it's day, and the sun came up. And what happened? The wind had died down, so the British ships were closer. They were going to see an escape. George Washington Washington still had 3,000 troops and himself to get off of Long Island. And it was day, and the ships were advancing. This is the second miracle that happened. All of a sudden, a dense fog came in. The fog was so thick that you could barely see 5 feet in front of you. That's like me. At 10 feet, you couldn't see anything. Can you see that boat? Hardly at all. And not only that, they couldn't see anything. The fog muffled the sound of the boats retreating. So as they paddled their boats, you could not hear them. By midday, George Washington put himself and the last of his troops in the last boat to cross the East River. And just as they were setting sail, the British rushed on Fort Sterling. And what do you think they found when they got into the fort? Nothing! They found no gun, they found no ammunition, no cannons, nothing. They had all gotten across the river. But they did see George Washington and his men leaving in their boat, and they fired on them. Now remember I told you, they were close hand-to-hand combat. Those guns didn't fire very far. And they missed George Washington and his men. Now what would have happened, guys, if that wind hadn't kept British ships from going up the harbor and stopping the retreat? What would have happened if the wind had stopped in time for the boats to cross?
None of George Washington's troops would have.
They would have been stuck. What would have happened if the fog didn't come up and protect the last 3,000 soldiers of George Washington?
They would have been killed.
If that did not happen, those troops would not have lived to fight again. They lost this island. But sometimes you gain the most from the battle you lose. They saved people, and because they saved people, saved another day, they were able to win the war. Because the Americans won the war, they were no longer under British rule, and the world